Somewhere in your brain right now, new connections are either forming or fading, based almost entirely on the choices you made today. And most people over 60 have absolutely no idea just how much daily control they actually have over that process. We tend to think of memory and mental sharpness as something that simply happens to us as we age, a slow fade we're powerless to influence. But that's not the full picture. Not even close. Your brain remains remarkably capable of adapting, strengthening, and protecting itself well into your 70s, 80s, and beyond, and it responds directly to a handful of small, everyday habits, many of which have nothing to do with brain training games or expensive supplements. In this video, I'm going to walk you through 9 simple, practical changes that genuinely support long-term brain health. The kind of changes you can start today, for free, without dramatically overhauling your life. If this is the kind of grounded, doctor-informed guidance you're looking for, go ahead and subscribe to Longevity Insight right now, because we cover exactly this kind of practical health content every single week. Before we get into the list, it helps to understand a basic truth about the aging brain. Yes, certain cognitive changes are a normal part of getting older. Processing speed can slow slightly, and recalling a specific name or word in the moment can take a touch longer than it used to. That's ordinary, expected, and not something to panic over. But the deeper, more troubling kind of cognitive decline, the kind that meaningfully affects independence and daily functioning, is influenced heavily by lifestyle factors that are, to a significant degree, within your control. Blood flow to the brain, inflammation levels, how well your body regulates blood sugar, and how consistently you challenge and rest your mind all play a direct role in how your brain ages. This is genuinely encouraging news because it means brain health isn't a fixed outcome handed to you at birth. It's something you actively shape, one day at a time, through choices that are often refreshingly simple. The first change is regular physical activity. And I want to be clear that this doesn't mean anything extreme. Just consistent movement, ideally most days of the week, whether that's a brisk walk, swimming, cycling, or dancing, whatever you genuinely enjoy enough to stick with. Physical activity increases blood flow throughout the body, brain included, delivering more oxygen and nutrients to brain tissue, while also supporting the release of proteins that help brain cells grow and form new connections. It also helps manage several of the other risk factors we'll discuss shortly, including blood pressure and blood sugar, making it one of the single most well-supported habits for protecting long-term cognitive health. Even a 20 or 30-minute walk most days makes a genuine, measurable difference over time. The second change is prioritizing quality sleep, not just quantity. During deep sleep, your brain performs a kind of nightly cleanup, clearing out metabolic waste products that accumulate during waking hours, including certain proteins that have been linked to cognitive decline when they build up excessively over time. Sleep also plays a central role in memory consolidation, essentially filing away what you learned and experienced during the day into longer-term storage. Poor or fragmented sleep interferes with both of these processes, which is exactly why consistently poor sleep is associated with a greater risk of cognitive difficulties over time. Keeping a consistent sleep and wake schedule, limiting screens before bed, and creating a cool, dark, quiet bedroom environment all support the kind of deep restorative sleep your brain genuinely depends on. The third change is following a balanced, brain-supportive diet, and thankfully, this doesn't require anything complicated or restrictive. Diets rich in vegetables, particularly leafy greens, fruits, whole grains, fish, nuts, and healthy fats like olive oil, while limiting excessive processed foods, red meat, and added sugar, have been consistently associated with better cognitive outcomes over time. This general pattern, often described in terms similar to a Mediterranean-style diet, supports healthy blood vessels throughout the body, including the small vessels that supply the brain, while also helping reduce the kind of chronic inflammation that's been linked to cognitive decline. You don't need to follow any diet perfectly. Simply shifting the general balance of your plate toward these foods more often than not produces meaningful benefits over months and years. The fourth change is staying mentally active through genuine cognitive challenge, not just passive activities. This means engaging in things that require actual effort and problem solving. Learning a new skill, picking up an instrument, working through a challenging puzzle, reading something that stretches your thinking, or even learning a new language. The key word here is challenge. Activities that feel effortless, however enjoyable, don't provide the same cognitive benefit as activities that genuinely push you to think in new ways. This concept relates to something researchers call cognitive reserve, essentially the brain's capacity to build extra connections and pathways that provide a buffer against future decline. The more varied and genuinely challenging your mental engagement, the more resilient your cognitive reserve tends to become over time. The fifth change is actively managing stress. because chronic stress genuinely takes a physical toll on the brain, not just an emotional one. Prolonged elevated stress hormones, particularly cortisol, have been associated with changes in brain regions closely tied to memory and learning when stress remains high over extended periods. This doesn't mean occasional stress is dangerous, since some stress is a completely normal part of life. It's the chronic, unrelenting kind that matters most here. Practical stress management doesn't need to be complicated. Regular physical activity, time spent outdoors, breathing exercises, prayer or meditation if that resonates with you, or simply making time for hobbies you genuinely enjoy, all help regulate the body's stress response over time, protecting your brain in the process. The sixth change is maintaining meaningful social connections, and this one surprises people more than almost any other item on this list. Regular social interaction provides genuine cognitive stimulation, requiring your brain to process conversation, read emotional cues, and engage in a way that passive activities like watching television simply don't replicate. Beyond the direct cognitive engagement, social isolation has also been consistently associated with a higher risk of cognitive decline, likely through a combination of reduced mental stimulation and the broader effects that loneliness has on overall health and well-being. This doesn't require an especially active social calendar. Regular phone calls with family, a standing coffee date with a friend, participation in a community group, or volunteering all provide meaningful social engagement that genuinely supports brain health over time. The seventh change is staying properly hydrated throughout the day. Your brain is composed largely of water, and even mild dehydration can measurably affect concentration, short-term memory, and overall mental clarity. As we discussed in a previous video, the body's thirst signal becomes somewhat less reliable with age, meaning it's entirely possible to be mildly dehydrated without feeling particularly thirsty. Making a habit of drinking water consistently throughout the day, rather than waiting for thirst to prompt you, supports both immediate mental clarity and, over the long term, healthy blood volume and circulation throughout the brain. The eighth change is controlling blood pressure consistently, because this connects directly to brain health in a very physical way. Chronically elevated blood pressure damages the small blood vessels throughout the brain over time, and this vascular damage has been strongly associated with an increased risk of cognitive decline, sometimes referred to as vascular contributions to cognitive impairment. The encouraging part is that blood pressure is highly manageable through a combination of diet, physical activity, stress management, and medication when appropriate, and keeping it in a healthy range consistently over years provides meaningful ongoing protection for brain tissue. The ninth and final change is managing blood sugar levels, particularly important for anyone who is diabetic, pre-diabetic, or simply trends toward higher blood sugar levels. Chronically elevated blood sugar contributes to inflammation and blood vessel damage throughout the body, brain included, and has been associated with a greater risk of cognitive difficulties over time. This connection has become significant enough that some researchers have described certain patterns of cognitive decline as being closely tied to metabolic and blood sugar health. Managing blood sugar through diet, regular physical activity, and appropriate medical care when needed protects your brain in much the same direct physical way that blood pressure management does. Now, here's something worth sitting with for a moment. None of these 9 changes exist in isolation. They genuinely reinforce one another. Regular physical activity supports better sleep. Better sleep supports more stable mood and stress levels. Lower stress supports healthier blood pressure. Healthier blood pressure and blood sugar protect the very blood vessels that deliver oxygen and nutrients to your brain every single day. Social connection often naturally comes bundled with physical activity and mental stimulation, whether that's a walking group or a card game with friends. This is genuinely good news because it means you don't need to master all 9 changes perfectly and simultaneously. Improving even 2 or 3 of these areas tends to create a ripple effect that supports the others as well, making the whole process considerably more manageable than it might initially sound. Let's talk briefly about the difference between normal age-related changes and signs that deserve a closer look from a healthcare professional, because this distinction matters and shouldn't cause unnecessary worry. It's entirely normal to occasionally misplace your keys, forget why you walked into a room, or need a moment longer to recall a specific name. These kinds of everyday lapses happen to people of every age and generally aren't cause for concern on their own. What's worth paying closer attention to is a noticeable ongoing change from your own personal baseline. Things like repeatedly asking the same question without remembering you already asked it, getting lost in familiar places, struggling to follow a conversation or a familiar recipe you've made for years, or family members gently mentioning that they've noticed changes in your memory or thinking. These kinds of changes, particularly when they're progressive rather than occasional, are worth discussing openly with your doctor. Early evaluation matters considerably because some causes of cognitive change are entirely treatable, including certain vitamin deficiencies, thyroid imbalances, medication side effects, and sleep disorders like sleep apnea, all of which can mimic more serious cognitive decline while being genuinely reversible once identified and addressed. I want to leave you with something encouraging, because this topic can understandably feel a little heavy. The habits we've discussed today aren't about achieving some perfect, unattainable standard of health. They're about consistency in small, manageable choices made day after day that compound meaningfully over months and years. You don't need to walk 5 miles daily, follow a flawless diet, or eliminate every source of stress from your life to meaningfully support your brain health. You simply need to move a little more than you currently do, sleep a little better, eat a little more thoughtfully, stay a little more socially and mentally engaged, and keep an eye on your blood pressure and blood sugar with your doctor's help. Small, sustainable steps repeated consistently are genuinely how long-term brain health gets protected, not dramatic, short-lived overhauls that are difficult to maintain. If this video gave you something practical to work with, I'd love to hear which of these 9 changes you're planning to focus on first. So leave a comment below and let me know. This community learns so much from hearing what's actually working for other people, and your comment might be exactly the encouragement someone else needs to get started. And if you know someone who could benefit from this information, a parent, a spouse, a friend who's been worried about their own memory or focus, please take a moment to share this video with them. Small, thoughtful gestures like that can genuinely make a difference in someone else's health journey. Before you go, remember this. Your brain isn't simply along for the ride as you age. It's actively shaped every single day by the choices you make, and that means you have far more influence over your long-term cognitive health than most people realize. Start small, stay consistent, and give your brain the everyday support it needs to keep serving you well for many years to come. If you found this video helpful, make sure you're subscribed to Longevity Insight and turn on notifications so you never miss the practical, science-informed health guidance we share here every week. Thank you for spending this time with me today. Take care of that mind of yours, and I'll see you in the next video.